So the next session is from Parveen. I just said hi to you, Parveen. Are you there? You're there, right?
Yep. Yeah, I am.
Hi again.
Yeah.
Yeah, welcome to API Summit 2021. Yeah, so let's get started with this session. I would like to introduce you, Parveen. She's going to speak on the topic let's shift left and right in the microservices world. Shift left and shift right. Yeah, so she's a senior test analyst consultant at ThoughtWorks, and she loves collaborating with teams and optimizing the processes, tools, and methodologies to enable the creation of high quality products. I think ThoughtWorks is all about that only. So she is also an international speaker, sharing her stories and experiences in testing to inspire other people around the globe. She has an impressive profile. I saw it on LinkedIn a couple of days back. Maybe you can visit and then get in touch with her. You can also get to know about her profile in detail. You can visit this URL and then get to know some more insights. Yeah, so I think I would like to hand it over to you, Parveen, and then you can get started. Welcome again. Yeah.
Yeah, let me share my screen first. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your desktop.
Yeah. Just a second. Yeah. Can you see? Are you able to view the
Yeah, we can see
slides
the
now?
presentation now. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're good.
Okay. Cool. Uh, uh, I'll get started. So, as you all know, like I'm going to speak about let's shift left and right in the whole new microservices world. Thank you so much for giving such a lovely introduction about me. But yeah, again, just a quick one. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're joining. And I hope you all are keeping safe. And thank you so much for joining my session today. As you all know, like I just got introduced that yeah, I'm Parveen Khan, and I'm a senior quality consultant at ThoughtWorks based in London, UK. And you can find me at Parveen_Khan10 at on this is my Twitter handle. You can find me on Twitter, and I share all my learnings and my experiences by writing the blogs on parveenkhans.com. So you can find that blog at parveenkhans.com. So, before we get started, I'll just give a very small disclaimer saying that I'm going to share my story, and I'm going to share my experiences of how we as a team approached shift left and shift right as a team. So, I am just sharing what I learned from it, and I'm not trying to tell you that this is exactly how you have to do it or this is how it will definitely work for you. So, but I hope you'll find it useful and you get to apply on your own context. So um, imagine like imagine you have joined a new team to work on, and like it's a new whole new product, and it's a complete new domain and it's totally new to you. So um, when you join, like you become very excited, right? Like you're very super excited that you just want to put in all your passion, you want to put in all your experience and effort to deliver the high quality to the end users, right? So the similarly, like I joined a new team in one of my previous company that I worked for before I joined ThoughtWorks. So I was super excited to learn about the product because the domain was totally new to me and the whole new tools and processes were completely new to me. So to give you a bit of context, it was built on a microservices architecture, which meant that there were multiple services running, and each service has had its own pipeline, so it could be deployed independently. So when we talk about microservices, it's like a lot of moving parts, which means I mean, for me, it's like when there are so many moving parts, it means that a lot of places for something to go wrong. So we as a team, before I joined, we were trying to follow continuous integration in terms of process, and the team was deploying to production without any set frequency. So when I say without any set frequency, I meant like there's nothing like I can say, oh, we deploy two times a day or 5 times a day or once a week, no set frequency. So we would deploy whenever the feature was developed, and it was tested by a QA, and it was tested by a product PO, product owner, and also signed off by a product owner. So we kind of had a UI automation implemented using Selenium as a tool, and different teams owned different services, and in fact there were few teams who had no ownership of any services at all as well. So by saying this, the way of process, the context of the product, everything looks like pretty great, right? Like it feels like, oh, we have already pipelines in place to deploy. We have and testers are exploring the feature, and those are being signed off by a product owner. And we also have UI automation that runs for UI automation tests that are running to make sure like existing features haven't broken when new features are being deployed, right? Everything seems to be like so good and like everything is in place, right? But it's not. So we had we had a Kanban board. Like we used to follow a Kanban approach, so we had a Kanban board. So we had different columns, like we had different columns like business analysis, like ready for QA, ready for dev, in dev, ready for test, in test, ready for test, in test, ready for UAT, and then ready for sign off. And we had ready for prod, and then we had in prod, and then we had done. I many columns they were, like I couldn't even fit them into one single slide. It was so hard for me. So can you imagine how it is to see that kind of board? I don't know how common it is for you to see all these columns, or to it's like or to see similar kind of a Kanban board in your current team or maybe in your previous experiences. If you have seen, or if you are very familiar with it, or if you have already worked with it, just drop a comment in the chat to see, like I want to see how many of you all have already seen this kind of a board. But I don't know about you all, but I was really amazed to see that. Like, oh my god! Like I was like, wow, so many different columns and such a huge board. Um, so I've been giving reactions of about that board, right? You might be feeling like, but what kind of problems or drawbacks I might have having, like we as a team might have been having to by that kind of a board structure or that kind of a process. Um, so if you have something like on similar lines, if you feel like, oh, it works perfect, or if you feel like it is not a drawback and it works perfectly for you, just drop in a comment. I just want to see how if there is something similar, and is it me who felt like that. So for me, what were the challenges? The challenges we had as a team was any feature, or you call it as a user story or you call it as a ticket, took a longer time to move from left column of the Kanban board to the right. It made the feedback loop very slow, and it was quite long. It took quite long because there were so many steps, there were so many stages, and there were so many. It could be so many blockers if there were so many different steps, and the context. The other challenge was the context was lost by the time the ticket or a feature was ready to be deployed on production. Just imagine, like for example, you are working, developer is working on a story, and then story has been deployed in QA or testing or whatever environment you call it as, and then developer has moved on to the next ticket, and you are still working testing that ticket, and like moving across and trying to get it signed off, but then there are some issues, and by the time all these steps have been crossed over, the developer who has worked on the ticket or whoever is deploying that ticket has no context of what has been worked on that feature, or what, or is there any dependency of any other service to be deployed. So the context was totally lost. So this was one of the challenge between them. And as I mentioned, like because of the context switching, the deployments were very painful, and the team had assumptions that testers are only responsible for the in QA column, like this because of those columns, it was like assumptions that, oh, this is your responsibility and this is where you lie, this is where the testers live in. But that's not true, right? So but those were the assumptions because of the structure of the board. And moreover, testing became a bottleneck because of so many different steps and so many different part of process. And because these were different challenges by having that kind of a board. So now let me share what I did to tackle these challenges, which kind of work for us. And don't try to think that I just came up with the idea, shared with the team, and everyone liked it, and we started following it. No, it was, and everything was all happy days, right? No, don't think like that. So it took quite a lot of effort to get to that place. So I had to take one step at a time to influence the team and convince the team. So the first thing I wanted to change was to improve the feedback loop. I just wanted to improve the feedback loop by a number of columns on the Kanban board. I know it might sound a bit unusual to think that eliminating the columns would reduce the time to feedback loop, and you might be also thinking that how is even this Kanban board or all these columns and removal or adding these columns is related or connected to shift left or shift right, right? You might have this question right now, but you'll see. So first thing I did was I suggested removing a few columns, like let's not have ready for QA and let's not have ready for sign off, and let's start shifting left. Um, by removing all those columns, I am trying by eliminating those columns, by removing those columns, I am trying to be in. I wanted to try to be involved early instead of just throwing the ticket over the wall, like anyone, like either it's developer throwing the ticket on the wall to QA or QA throwing the ticket over the wall to the product owner or vice versa, right? So this is what I suggested, and I said, okay, let's start, and this is how we can start shifting left. And instead of just me being in the QA column. And what does that mean? Like, what does shifting left means? So, shifting testing to the left means pushing testing towards the early stages of the development process, right? A lot of us, we all know this, right? So, it means early testing. So for me, shifting left means start collaborating early. And when you think like, how can we start shifting left early? Like, you might have, like, many of you might be having different questions. I mean, just how I had, like, but how can we shift left? Kind of like, oh, what do we need to implement to shift left? Or you might be thinking, like, what process do we have to follow to shift left? Or even if we shift left, what can we as a tester collaborate on? This was a question. This was one of the questions for me as well. And when would we know that our approach is shift left and we are doing the right way, right? So um, let's get. I mean, I can answer to all of those, but let's get some of the answers to some of these questions, right? So we have seen what is shift left. So just as a brief definition, okay. Now let me talk about how we as a team shifted left. Okay, as we all know that, again, as I said before I started my session, that it is no one size fits all, right? And all the process following of any process or anything depends on a lot of different things like context of the team, context of the domain, context of the product, and what kind of tools, size of the team, right? So again, I'm saying that whatever I'm sharing about how we tried, you can just I'm not saying you can just follow as it is, but yeah, So the first thing we tried is like, as I said, we tried to eliminate the columns. So as a tester, I started getting involved from the beginning of the story, or you call it as a feature implementation. So I started collaborating with the BA, like business analyst, product owner, and devs to understand, analyze, and to question the story requirements and help in refining the acceptance criteria. So involving early also allows testers to raise questions about how the story can be tested, not just like on the feature level, but how, like raising the questions of how can we test, like are there any dependencies of like any other extra tools or any configuration that we need. So we get, if we involve early, then we could ask these kind of questions. So this kind of becomes an input for early feedback. So will there, we can also ask questions like, will there be any kind of operability implementation? Are there going to be any kind of cross-functional requirements or any dependencies, or that can affect any other service? Or, and like by involving early on, we can always advocate for like testability, so that feature is easier to test instead of waiting for the feature to be deployed into trying to figure out how we can test, and like not just how, but having those challenges of any kind of like configuration or or environmental issues. So environment, so when I say involving early, doesn't necessarily mean that we just have to be part of all those 3 MFO sessions, and but also to get involved early and understand the requirements. But it also means that we have to keep the collaboration and conversation open out of those ceremonies or 3 amigos as well. So just trying to build the collaboration and communication between the team. And another thing I tried was pair with the developers while the story is being developed, instead of waiting for it to be completed. Like, don't wait. So I know the challenges of waiting for it to be completed. So I started pairing while unit tests were being implemented, and it also by going through this feature, how what or how it is being implemented. And it also helps in eliminating duplication of, like for example, if something has been written in unit test, you can always look, oh, this has already been being tested in the lower level. We don't have to write the same test on the UI level. So it's kind of like helps in those understanding as well, and sharing the ideas. And it could be something like you can as well add value to those tests by like going through those different tests and having questions, by raising questions and having those conversations. And also working with the devs to implement, like to add different tools, like code analysis, like, oh, let's have this, let's have some code coverage, just like it's kind of like having those conversations, and trying to involve early on is really very helpful. So this is how I tried, and this is what I was involved in when I say early on. And not just that, but also pair with developers to write. I started pairing with developers to write the automated tests, UI automated tests. Okay, to be specific. So it can help in having the shared ownership for test automation instead of just testers owning it. Or it can also help, like not having the block, like one person being the blocker for owning it, and if something fails, that is the only person who is trying to fix the test. But it also helps like everyone owning, the whole entire team owns the test automation and understands the pain points and also improves. So by sharing the pain, I think it becomes more like, oh, let's improve that. So I think that's how it can help if you have the shared ownership of for test automation. And it just not only help in having the share ownership, as I said, but also it helps in having the visibility of what tests are written, as I mentioned in early steps of eliminating the duplicate efforts, right? And it also helps in pushing more tests into the lower layer of the test pyramid. And now coming back to the answering the question about like how would we know, or how we checked ourselves as a team that if we are implementing shifting left, or and if we are doing the right way, and is it helping us, or is it help or holding us back? And again, there is no right way. When we had to check, we were trying to figure out, is it helping us, did it improve, or is it again or is it trying to create even did it create a more slower feedback loop? So that's exactly what we wanted to check. So the best way, and the way we checked was is like by analyzing whether testers are looking at the feature or user story for the first time when it's in the test column, or if the answer to this is no, then the team are applying some kind of practices of shifting left. So this was one of the um, uh, one way to analyze. Okay, and to know whether it's helping you or it's holding you back, or the feedback loop became too slower than previously, it's to see the lead time of the feature or a story. So so when I say lead time of the feature or a story, it's like from start till it's being tested, and by the time it's being ready to be deployed and it is in prod, has it reduced the time? Compare the time previously and once you have implemented it, and see has it changed or is it still the same. This is how you can try to figure out if something is working or not, some process or some changes has been working for you or not. And check if you had a shorter feedback loop instead of raising any questions or assumptions only when doing the testing when it's completely developed. So this could be a simple, so these are the two simple things which we as a team try to check ourselves whether it helped us or not, or whether we thought we are doing right or not. Again, it's not a set way, but this is how we did. So shifting left helps in not just shifting testing earlier, but it also helps in building collaboration, communication, and culture of shared responsibility within the team. And that instead helps deliver value to the users faster, right? It's not just this, but we also, it's not just about like, oh, just to be involved in unit test, shared ownership of test automation, and try to collaborate with developers and for acceptance criteria and all that stuff. It's not just that, but we also aimed to shift our performance and security and accessibility testing to the left. We were not there yet when I was still with that team. I'm not but we this was one of our goal. Once we were in a good place to start, we wanted to shift our performance, security, and accessibility testing to the left as well, and start as early as possible. So testing is not completed yet. So imagine you have shifted left, you have tested, you have involved, you have shortened the feedback loop and everything. Don't think that testing is completed. It's not just shifting left and making the feedback loop faster and deliver to the users, and forget about it, right? It's not done yet. So we have to look into the production and learn how our users are using our application, whatever you call it. So understand the pattern, involve in production in this incidents, and learn from the issues. I mean, this is what we as a team and I as a tester started doing when I said shifting right. And how can we do this? And how can we involve in production? I mean, the answer to being involved in these incidents and involve doing this is by shifting right. This is the answer, right? So shifting right is not just about testing in production. A lot of us think that when we say shift right, oh, it's all about testing in production. It's not just about that, but it is more than that. It is about learning from the incidents, as I mentioned earlier, and from the production issues, and taking the real time feedback from the users or the customers who are using our system, so that it can be used in building or improving the existing features, right? Learning from the users to see how they're using the system. So this will help. This is kind of a feedback, right? Like, and shift right is also about making use of our modern tools and technologies. Like, gone are the days like when we had no tools or no technology available for us to have this ability to do anything in production. But now we have a lot of tools and technologies to make use of that will help us in shifting right. And it could be and what could we do, like what else can we do apart from testing and production for shifting right? Like, so it could be like developing a feature behind the feature toggles and releasing it to few users to see if on the performance or if there's any kind of issues once we deployed that feature, or even get some kind of feedback from from those users by releasing to only few users, right? So it is about how you can make use of it, like, right, like we use feature toggles like to do these kind of things, and which helped us to releasing just to few number of users, and seeing how people and getting the feedback from the users, real-time users, and then make changes or improve the feature. And not just that, we started building observability to gain the visibility of the system so we could see what's happening. So that it allows us to observe and give the ability to ask the questions. So we also started having some kind of monitoring in place, especially when we are trying to work in this kind of microservices world. It's like so many moving parts. It is so important to get the visibility of the system and the monitoring in place so that we see what's happening to its service and what's going on, right? So I, as a tester, did this. How I added value for while I was testing, right, was like asking questions whenever I was testing a feature. So I would ask this, like, how easy is it to find out the information if something goes wrong? In fact, ask questions and try to find out the answers by looking into the logs or events, or if you have anything, whatever you have, right, and see if it provides you with enough information. If it doesn't, then raise questions like, why am I not able to find? So because if you're not able to find while you are testing it, then how would developers would be able to find when there is some kind of a production issue related to that feature? So it kind of, you as a tester, you're trying to help the team in this way. So by raising these questions, we as a testers are helping to improve the instrumentation, and we are helping the developers to implement better logs and events that can provide enough information, right? And okay, I know we said like we need visibility, we need feature flags, we need this and that and all that stuff, right? But why? So why did we wanted to shift right? Can't we just deploy feature into the production and just keep do quick sanity or smoke test and say, oh yeah, everything is look fine, and we don't have to do anything more, and we don't have to make use of all these tools or anything, right? We could do that, but no. When there are so many moving parts, it is so important to make sure like everything, once you have deployed anything, nothing, no other service has being affected, or how things are working. So it is really important to shift right. And we did this because, oh, let's just right, we didn't do that because of that. We did that because we were seeing a lot of common pattern between the production issues, and we realized that even though we had logs, um, we were still being reactive than being proactive to the production issues. When I mean reactive, I meant to say is like we had logs and everything, but we were still relying on the production, like on the real time users to like to raise any bugs or any issues for us to look into it. So that's what I mean when I say reactive. We were being reactive. We were not the first person to know if there's some service goes down, or if there are some 500 errors or anything, like, we were, of course, we can't be we cannot have a perfect system where all the time we will know the issues, because there are so many unknowns into these services. But all I'm saying is like, at least we have to be proactive in some issues, some very common issues. Not, suppose like the login page is not working, the service is down. These are the simple things which we can be proactive towards, right? So we saw this pattern, and it was taking too long for the team to debug or figure out where things and why things were going wrong. So so that is the reason why we decided to create some kind of visibility into the system, so that it can help us find the answers to the questions and help us debug the issues. So not just that, but our application was a multi-tenancy system. So we had challenges to test the feature. Like, for example, no matter how much testing I might have done in test environment or pre-prod environment or whatever you call it, I still had some gaps due to the way the production system was set up. It could be like configuration, the way it was set up, it was totally different. So, and the data was totally different. So this is the reason why we started implementing features using feature flags. So it made kind of my life easier to test different tenants whenever I wanted to, by just turning the feature flag on for some users and look into the production. And of course, this depends on, again, on the context of how much access do you have to the production. I know, but yeah, I had full access to the production, so it was easy for me to test the feature in production using feature toggles. So this approach also helped us in maintaining the continuous testing loop, instead of just saying that we have shifted left or we have shifted right, but focusing on the entire continuous loop. And starting with starting with any steps or any tools or any new process is pretty challenging. So never forget to use these two magic words, which is let's try. This always works, because whenever I was throughout this process, whenever I was trying to share some idea or something new, I used to say, let's try. If it doesn't work, then let's just skip it. So out of this entire process, I had some takeaways from this whole experience of how we shifted left and right. So let me share you those with you. So um, throughout this entire process, like still we are improving. Like before I left that team, we were still improving. So again, there's no such thing as like once we have implemented something, that's it. We have implemented a perfect process. We don't have to revisit. It's not such thing, right? It is always a continuous improvement process. So I really felt very empowered and valued as a tester within the team, being involved and being part of this change, and being involved throughout the cycle. Not just being involved and being there, but being kind of a driver or being kind of a valued team member, and sharing all those ideas and making some improvements. Again, as a tester, when we say improving the quality of the product, it doesn't mean that we can improve the quality by just testing the feature. We can look at lot of across various things, where the whole entire holistic view of how that is being developed and deployed and what's happening after the deployment. This whole cycle involves, we as a tester can improve the quality throughout this whole cycle. I mean, that's how I believe in. And shifting left or shifting right is not just about tools. And shifting left is not all about automation. So it is not about implementing everything, automating everything, and that's it. You have shifted left. It's not all about that. Shifting right is again not just about testing in production. And yeah, that was some of the experiences and some of the learnings and some of the takeaways which I had when I was working with the team, and how we approached the entire thing and why we approached it. And I've shared all those with you. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me, and happy to answer for any questions.
Thank you so much, Parveen. Again, a wonderful session. Lots of insights considering both the approaches, shift left as well as shift right. Thank you for the session. And yes, I could see some questions flowing in. There is one question from Angat. He's asking you that could you please get to know more about what is shift left and shift right, typically in terms of microservices level?
Um, Again, like if we see it in that way, I think we should not try to. If we are saying that either we are shifting left or shifting right, we are focusing on the entire product, right? We are not focusing on the ones. We are not working on. Even though we are working on one service, we have to always look at the whole product view, right? So based on that, I think uh, um, get into two details of what is shifting left for service. Like when you are implementing a feature, you're not implementing on a one single layer or a one single service, right? You involve everywhere. So I think when we talk about left or shift right, it is about being involved in all those parts, right? Like if you, like for example, when I said like when it is a microservices world, again it could be different to different teams how they set up, where they can say, oh, these are two or three services owned by this team, other three services are owned by this team, so it could be different, right? But when I say shift left, about like you have to be involved early on, and it could be anything, like feature implementation or asking questions, or raising anything. So regardless of whether you're working on a microservice or a monolith or any kind of distributed system, shift left and shift right approach is it is about the way you see it and the way you approach it. It doesn't change. And of course it will change in microservices world a bit, because it becomes like a lot of dependencies. It becomes even more important, because then if you if you're not involved everywhere, you won't have enough information about what's happening around different services. So if you sit in the testing column, then you won't have, again, of course you can raise the questions, but it is not shortening the feedback loop. So yeah, I think that's what I can say.
Okay, fair enough. I hope Angad you got the answer. And there's one more question from Kika where uh, the question says like, could you explain in more detail about the metrics you and your team has used for shift left and shift right? Top three criteria to check on whether we are on right track or not. Measurements.
Yeah. uh, yeah, as I said, like, we had a couple of metrics to say, like, oh, can we see if we have shifted left? So I shared, right, that me as a tester, am I seeing the user story only when it is moved to in testing or whatever, that ready for testing or whatever columns you have? Like, am I seeing that feature only after it's been developed? Okay, forget about the columns, but am I seeing, as a tester, seeing the feature only after it's being developed? Then that means that we are not on the right path. If I'm being involved with the developer, with the BA, on all those stuff, discussing, raising the questions, and trying to figure out how I can test before even it is being before even it is coming to me. And it's not just coming to me and I'm testing on my own, but pairing with the developer and trying to do some kind of exploratory testing and doing the acceptance criteria testing. So that way, the metrics which we kind of used for shift left, metrics for like those, and for shift right, I think the metric which we used was like, can we find the information whenever there is a production issue? Is it easy enough for us to debug as a team? Can we find some information in the logs? Um, and it was like on a high level, that can we find the issues first before even the users are finding it? So these were some of the metrics which we kind of used, and we had kind of kept the goal, like, try to keep rechecking if that is not yeah, if we are not yet there. So kind of like which we used.
Mm-hmm. Good. Probably I would like to ask you one question related to TDD, BDD, ATDD. So in terms of all these terms, keywords, buzzwords, practices, most probably XP practices, whether it really helps, and then are there any challenges which you and your team faced while implementing the same thing?
Um, it depends on everyone. Big fan of all those tools, to be very honest. I'm definitely not a big fan. I have used like all those, like Gherkin and like, Cucumber, TDD, and all that stuff, like in my early, like past couple of years ago, and it was pretty challenging. Not in terms of challenging, but it was extra overhead for us. It was an overkill. Like, again, a lot of people like it. It works for a lot of people. When I say context driven, that's I'm not a huge fan, so I never go to that part. I never go across that way at all. So I'm not the best person to give you any kind of, like, which is good, which is bad, or what it is. But yeah, in my opinion, I'm not a huge fan of any of those techniques.
Yeah, but then when it comes to typically shifting focus left, I think it's always better to have those particular uh, unit level testing related things in terms of TDD. Don't you think like that? Why you say that you are
Yeah,
not a fan
but
of these things?
yeah, see, like, again, it is, um we do require certain things. If we are, like, when we say we are working on unit test level and all that stuff, but it's not necessary that we have to like follow as it is. we can pick and cherry pick, right? We can pick few things. Like for example, when I pair, like when the testers are writing unit tests, like we kind of first test and then we kind of first write the test and then implement the feature. Again, TDD, but I cannot say that we are fully implementing TDD, right? So if I say that, then that's not fair enough. Like I cannot say that we are implementing TDD. So we have picked few things from it, and that's working for us, and that's how we use. So that's the reason why I said, like, in my opinion, like, yeah, that's why that's my opinion. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I got it. I think it's all about one size doesn't fit all, right? And then making use of
Exactly.
best of the things which are available. Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
because whenever we pick some
Uh-huh.
tool, it's not important that we have to use everything, right? We can pick
Exactly.
whatever works for us. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Totally agree with you. Yeah. So
Cool.
I think, yeah, we are on time. And let me again share my screen. Yeah, we have shared the feedback link on the chat. Please feel free to share your feedback for Parveen. And yeah, I would like to take this opportunity to give you thank you, Parveen, for being with us today. And then, yeah, we really like those insights. Yeah. Thank you so
Thank you
much,
so much
Parveen.
for having me. Thank
Thank,
you.
thank you.